الإسلاميين نوعين. هناك نوع لديه قناعة كبيرة بالحرب على الأمريكيين والمشروع الأمريكي، وهذا النوع تشكله بعض حركات المقاومة إن كان في العراق. يعني لا يجوز أن نشمل الإسلاميين كل الإسلاميين، وهناك إسلاميين هم يعملون لمصلحة CIA، وهؤلاء الناس تحركهم السعودية وتمولهم السعودية. وأنت شاهدت ماذا حصل عندنا في لبنان، فتح الإسلام بالكامل فبركة سعودية، وواضح بأن فتح الإسلام كانت تنفذ مشروعا سعوديا في لبنان وفي مخيم نهر البارد، ولم تكن تنفذ مشروعا مقاوما. أنا أعتقد أن اليهود الذين كانوا في المدينة عادوا بعد 1400 سنة من هزيمتهم على يد النبي محمد، عادوا للانتقام من النبي محمد عبر هذا النظام الحاكم. أنا أجزم.
يعني تقول انه
فتشي عن بني القينقاع، فتشي المسلمين يعرفوا هذا الامر. فتشي عن بني القينقاع بتوصلي شو عم بيصير اليوم مع النظام السعودي.
Officially, Saudi Arabia didn't disapprove of the deal, but it was worried that Iran, flush with new revenues, would intensify its activities across the Middle East. And Riyadh appears to have surprisingly forged closer ties with another country weary of Iran's intentions, Israel.
It was just 1 year ago. The West and Iran were signing a historic agreement on the Iranian nuclear program. In exchange for a lifting of sanctions, Tehran agreed to limit its nuclear activities and to an intrusive inspection regime.
So I think this is a sign of hope for the entire world, and we all know that this is very much needed in these times.
While it was all smiles in Vienna, the deal felt like a cold shower for the fiercest opponents of Iran's return on the world stage, Israel and Saudi Arabia, pushing these two sworn enemies to engage each other in secret. A few weeks earlier, an unusual forum was held at the prestigious Council on Foreign Relations. Side by side, an Israeli and a Saudi, but not just anyone. The Israeli is Dori Gold, who is very close to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The Saudi is retired General Anwar Eshki, an advisor to the royal family. The timing for this meeting was no accident. At the same moment in Vienna, negotiations on Iran were about to bear fruit.
Today, our two states are facing the same set of security challenges. Our interests increasingly overlap. These security challenges that I'm speaking about primarily emanate from the same single source: the Islamic Republic of Iran.
This coming out in Washington was the result of 5 secret meetings between Israelis and Saudis in the Czech Republic, in Italy, and pictured here, in India. Gold and Eshki each run a think tank, a handy academic coverage to camouflage contacts between the two countries banned since the creation of Israel in 1948. And it was no coincidence either to see Eshki, a highly respected voice in Riyadh, interviewed by Israeli media, and in turn Gold, now director of Israel's foreign ministry, speaking to a Saudi newspaper. A few weeks ago, the Speaker of the Iranian parliament even told a Lebanese television channel that back in 2006, Riyadh and Jerusalem had cooperated during the war between Israel and Hezbollah, the Lebanese Shia militia backed by Iran.
Not only Saudi Arabia did not help Hezbollah, but quite the opposite, it has helped the Zionist entity. According to our information during the war in July 2006, Saudi Arabia even provided Israel with strategic intelligence.
A claim that the head of Israel's military intelligence at the time confirmed on France 24 for the very first time.
The fact that the Saudis were also supporting the fact that Hezbollah as a terror organization will be defeated is not a surprise.
According to our information, those contacts are continuing, this time at an official level. Earlier this year, the Israeli defense minister didn't even try to hide it.
But we do have channels to speak with our Sunni Arab neighboring countries, not just Jordan and Egypt, Gulf states, North African states. As we share today, Israel and them, and we claim Europe and the United States, common interests. For them, Iran is an enemy. The Shia axis, to include Hezbollah, is an enemy.
In April, during a visit to Egypt by Saudi King Salman, Cairo announced the handover to Saudi Arabia of 2 small islands in the Red Sea. These islands are of strategic interest for Israel, as they control the access to the strait leading to the port town of Eilat, Israel's one and only access to the Red Sea. Here's the rub. Under the terms of the 1979 peace agreement between Israel and Egypt, such a transfer, in this case to Saudi Arabia, must be validated by Israel. And that is precisely what happened. Riyadh officially committed itself to respect freedom of navigation in the area for everyone, including Israel. Another player in those semi-official meetings is the former head of Saudi intelligence, Prince Turki Al Faisal. 2 months ago, he took the stage alongside Netanyahu's former national security advisor.
With regard to the two-state solution, the fact that every Western leader, left, right, doesn't matter, supports a so-called two-state solution should tell everybody around the world if this is beneficial to the Palestinians or not. The two-state solution is a disaster. It's worse than the original Nakba. Going back to the Saudi-Israeli relationship, there really is no demarcation between these two entities. They both serve the agenda of this farcical war on terror. The Saudis are the ones who are financing ISIS and Al-Qaeda before it. This is really more of a rebranding of Al-Qaeda, turned it into ISIS. The fact that Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and other Gulf states are supporting financially, literally funding this, is indisputable. The fact that Israel and Saudi Arabia work together tells you that ISIS more realistically stands for Israeli Secret Intelligence Services. The agenda of ISIS does nothing but exacerbate the already draconian laws that exist in the West. It is an intended agenda of taking more rights away from the people, instilling more power into these corrupt governments in the West, which are never-endingly falsifying information in order to justify one war, one boogeyman after another. So the Israeli-Saudi relationship could hardly be any more intimate. These two are in bed and have been in bed for a long time. Well, I think it's beyond absurd to think that the Saudi Arabian regime, the only nation in the world named after a family, by the way, the Saudi Arabian regime builds hospitals in Israel. It funds ISIS, which is the agenda, which is the instrument to maintain and continue the farcical war on terror. The Saudi Arabian regime could have been helping the Palestinians. Hell, they could be rebuilding Gaza. They could have been using their influence to open the border between Gaza and Egypt. And yet the Saudi Arabian regime sits there doing nothing but funding this Wahhabi Takfiri insanity, this false Islam throughout the region. Everything that's happening in the Middle East right now in terms of the bloodshed is a part of the Israeli agenda of Greater Israel. If we read Oded Yanan's A Strategy for Israel in the 1980s, we find that the agenda for Israel was target number 1, to take out Saddam Hussein, done, and also to balkanize, effectively balkanize the Middle East region. Saudi Arabia is literally paying for that balkanization policy. We see that playing out in Syria. It's all too clear. We see that agenda playing out in Iraq. Again, all too clear. Saudi Arabia pretends to be an Islamic regime while it sits there and destroys holy sites, including sites of the Prophet himself. It's doing this all the while pretending to be an Islamic nation. It is nothing but a stooge for the West. It is the instrument of finance for this madness we see in the region. So anything that the Saudi Arabian regime does and the Israeli regime does is not helpful to the Palestinians. The Palestinians have every right to decide for themselves, and I have every right to voice my opinion. I am an honorary Palestinian citizen, by the way, so I do reckon I have the right to express myself honestly. The fact that every single Western leader supports a two-state solution should tell you something. If you want to be in agreement with every single Western leader with regard to the so-called two-state solution, go ahead.
But how about the Palestinians
Here's what's going to happen. Here's what's going to happen if there is a so-called two-state solution. What you'll have is this powerful Israeli state sitting next to this disempowered, impotent, military non-existent. It won't have the rights to be able to exercise freedom of travel. It'll have an absolutely economically inferior state, and it will always be just one false flag attack away from being pummeled by Israel. And the Palestinians will never get their land back. They will never have the right of return if they sign on the dotted line and say they agree to a two-state deal. So I hope to God that they never make that choice. But of course it is their choice. I do not agree with either one of them on that subject, and I certainly don't agree with all of the Western leaders who agree with a two-state solution. I've just played out the scenario for you. If the Palestinians agree to a two-state so-called solution, you'll have a militarily, economically, politically impotent Palestinian state next to this behemoth of Israel, and it will be one false flag attack from being pummeled. Israel is the master of false flag attacks. It will use false flags to justify pummeling this Palestinian state if it's ever created. And never mind the refugees, the 1948 refugees. I want justice for all of them. I want all of the Palestinians to be able to return to Palestine proper. Palestine proper, not a two-state proper, not 1967. 1948 is the Palestine that I'm waiting for.
Saudi Arabia, the government of Saudi Arabia, has a friendly relationship with the United States. In fact, there is something common between the state of Saudi Arabia and the state of Israel which would surprise you. They are sisters. The same forces who work for the establishment of the state of Israel are the same forces who work for the establishment of the state of Saudi Arabia. The same forces who have kept Israel alive today and guaranteed Israel's security are the same forces who have kept Saudi Arabia alive today and has guaranteed Saudi Arabia's security. And when the state of Israel is to be destroyed, Saudi Arabia also goes down into the garbage bin.
The royal house of Saudi Arabia, because it's the royal house of the Sauds, they called it Saudi Arabia, and it claimed to be Jewish. So the entire Muslim world is being led by Jews. The Wahhabis, the Wahhabs, which run Qatar, claim to be Jewish. So the entire Muslim world is being led by people who claim to be Jewish. Now that in and of itself should shock you.